It is filling in nicely for what will be a sold-out crowd at Avaya Stadium. The U.S. taking on Canada in what is becoming arguably the biggest rivalry in women's soccer. Welcome to the pregame show presented by AT&T alongside former U.S. international Leslie Osborne. I'm Katie Witham. These two first faced off on Thursday night in Vancouver in front of another sold-out crowd at BC Place, but it really got going early on in the 31st minute.
Well, yeah, and Canada had the run of the play the first 30 minutes, but here, Casey Short does a great job keeping this ball alive, and Alex Morgan taking the half chance at that half volley. This is what she's been doing. She's in form. She reads it well, missed clearance from Canada, and just capitalizes on that to get them on the board.
Her sixth goal this year, but in the 57th minute, Canada equalizes.
Well, Quinn has too much time and space to get that ball across the box and has another opportunity to swing that in and sink, doing what she does best, getting a bicycle kick. And Leon, the spark that she was for Canada to come onto that field and score that big goal for Canada.
Speaking of the field, welcome down to it alongside Leslie. I'm Katie, and you saw the final there was 1-1. What kind of a result was that for both sides?
Well, the result feels different for each team. For Canada, that felt like a win, and for the U.S., that was a loss. You could tell from the start, Canada came out with so much confidence. They were so comfortable on the ball. They were excited to play and so all over the U.S. from the start. Yes, they had 2 weeks to prepare and to execute a game plan. But what impressed me most is even in the second half, they continued to attack. And they spent more time in the U.S.'s defensive third in the second half than they did in the first.
What about the U.S.?
Well, they feel like it was a loss to them. Individually, they didn't perform well, but collectively, they did not solve the tactical changes that Canada made, but also they were not happy with how they performed in that second half.
You mentioned not being able to solve those tactical changes. They get an opportunity to adjust coming out here tonight, so what do you need to see in this one?
Well, I want to see them deal with Canada's pressure better. You could see there wasn't enough movement and support off the ball. They felt isolated out there. And also the flank play. If you're going to play in a 4-3-3, you have to worry, Canada has to worry about our outside backs, not us worrying about Canada. But the key battle is in the midfield. That's where a lot of this run of play came from. And you can see here, Desiree Scott has way too much time and space on the ball. There's no pressure. Sam Mewis, Lindsay Horan, Julie Ertz have to figure this out with Lynn Williams and get pressure. Desiree Scott breaks that line, and Christine Sinclair doing what she does so well, breaking off that line. And Adriana Leon has just too much time and space on the ball. And Becky here, I know she wishes she had another opportunity to put that away, but the battle comes down, and the key to this game is the midfield. Offensively, how do they deal with that pressure, and defensively, figuring out that spacing and how they capitalize.
We're going to be keeping our eyes on that one all game long, but for more on what to watch for in this matchup, let's head upstairs to the booth. The two calling this one, JP Delacamera and Allie Wagner.
Thank you, Katie. A 1-1 draw on Thursday. Allie, and both coaches said they were disappointed. Why?
Yeah, same sentiment, right? But for completely different reasons. I mean, for the U.S., obviously, Leslie talked about it. It was a poor performance. I mean, only 3 players connected over 70% of their passes, 2 of which are center backs. That's never going to be a good stat for a team. And for Canada, a disappointment because they thought they deserved the result. As much as they have been the inferior team in the years past, and they want to knock off that big old target. In that matchup, they walked off the pitch going, we bossed that game around and we deserve the win.
All right, just a few days later, what could change tonight for both teams?
Well, for Canada, I think it's interesting because they pride themselves on having adaptability and their ability to flow within systems and formations, and then with the tactics within those systems. So while normally I would say that nothing will change, they played great the other night, I don't expect that with Canada. I think they're going to throw a wrinkle out here at the U.S. and see how they react, and the way they start the match is surely not going to be the way they finish it. For the U.S., I anticipate that they're going to try to keep things compact. Leslie touched on it, but a lot of their problems will be solved if they can keep things a lot tighter from the back or to have a lower line of pressure, and then they can play out of the press, and then it's going to be a lot harder for Canada to solve them.
Changes in the lineups for these two teams. Here are the starting 11s. We start with the USA.
Yeah, and 2 changes there with Taylor Smith coming in for Casey Short, Kristen Press coming in up top for Lynn Williams, and I think that's an interesting piece for the U.S. because Kristen Press can be an outlet. She can play better back to goal than Lynn Williams. And then in the midfield, the real battle is with Ertz, Horan, and Mewis. How do they solve Canada's midfield? Because Jessie Fleming was fantastic the other night. And for Canada, they also have 2 changes. They're going to come out in their 4-3-3 supposedly. I don't know if this is the way it's ultimately going to end up. Megan Kelly starting in that right back position. Ashley Lawrence had to go back to her international play at PSG. That's something to keep an eye on because that is not her preferred spot. She's typically a forward. And then up top, you've got Adriana Leon getting her start on that left wing. Fantastic game the other night as well.
They had a sellout crowd the other night in Vancouver. They're expecting a sellout crowd here tonight in San Jose. The USA gets ready to meet CONCACAF rivals Canada for the 2nd time in 4 nights, and you can expect a physical element to this game, much like we saw on Thursday in Vancouver.
What's your emergency?
Must be hard being a first responder.
Only way to survive the job is to find a way to cope with the ones who lose. But in those moments, when you actually save someone, there is no better feeling in the world.
We have to get her to the hospital now!
I can help you. Please.
For Canada, team captain number 12.
Welcome back to the pregame show presented by AT&T. All U.S. fans set and ready for the U.S. taking on Canada. Leslie, it's hard to believe this is the final match for the women in 2017. And when you look back at this season, which has been very transitional, how do you assess it?
That's a tough question to answer. I think as a fan, I'm happy to see Jill Ellis committed to this experimental phase with this team, bringing new players in, trying new formations, playing the top teams in the world. But as a former player, it's been frustrating to see these results and performances by the team. But this is not your typical off year. Coming off of an underperforming at the Olympics, and also these players have played more minutes for the NWSL than they ever have, and playing against the top teams in the world.
So when we look at this season, we're going to break it down into thirds. It starts in the spring with the She Believes Cup.
Yeah, and these, you see 2 big losses, but these are against top 5 opponents in the world, and it's also when Jill Ellis experimented into a 3-back and moved Allie Long from the midfield into that center back position, and that just did not work. Now, it could have been the actual personnel, but the 3-back was not successful in the She Believes Cup.
Then when we moved into the spring, on paper, it looks like things really got rolling and we're going well.
Well, yes, on paper, having 2 big wins in Europe, having Dahlkemper, Sam Mewis, Casey Short play in these huge games and get that experience, but also coming back to our tournament that we hosted and having a disappointing loss against Australia and not playing well against Brazil until Julie Ertz gets moved into that holding mid position, and that's when the U.S. started to play in this 4-3-3.
You mentioned the 4-3-3 and moving Julie Ertz into that position. That seemed like the turning point as you look at the results from the fall. 6-game unbeaten streak.
Yeah, and you could see chemistry and partnerships forming and the team playing well in this 4-3-3. But New Zealand and South Korea are different types of opponents than a Canada. And the U.S. wasn't fully tested until playing at BC Place in front of 28,000 fans. So for young players like Sam Mewis and Casey Short, that was huge for them. So yes, there has been progress, and yes, it's been a crazy year, but there's still some big questions that need to be answered going into 2018.
And I think Jill Ellis is hoping she can get some of those questions answered here tonight. We are minutes away from kickoff, the procession, the anthem. JP Delacamera and Allie Wagner will be with you when we return. Stick around.
We welcome those joining us now on FS1 as the USA gets ready to take on Canada with Allie Wagner. I'm JP Delacamera. Christine Sinclair among those in the tunnel. John Herdman, Canada's coach, said, "We will never have another Christine Sinclair." Why is she so special?
I mean, when you consider that she's the leading goal scorer in the international game, active, I guess I should say, and the players she had around her, or didn't for that many years, tells the story about how impressive she is that she was able to do it single-handedly.
She is captain for club and also for country. She plays for the Portland Thorns. She still says she has one more World Cup and one more Olympic tournament left in her. But first things first, USA gets ready to meet Canada for the 2nd time in 4 nights. Players coming out of the tunnel here at Alliance Stadium.
States of America versus the
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and remove your hats for the singing of O Canada, followed by the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner. Performing both anthems tonight, please welcome singer-songwriter Bruna Christina.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free, from far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rang the air, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the lands of the free and the home of the
Great rendition of the two anthems. The series history pretty lopsided in terms of the USA having the huge edge. The Canadians have only won 3 times. The last time was back in 2001, so Canada long overdue to defeat the United States. Let's go downstairs. Katie Witham is standing by with USA head coach Jill Ellis.
Jill, this is the last match of 2017. What are you hoping to see today?
Well, I think some of the things we talked about in training the last couple of days, just translating. So, dynamic movement out of our front three, our outside backs getting high, and just the confidence to play through our midfield. So I think, it's a good game for us, a great opponent. And it's still, again, about ourselves and how we perform.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Final game of 2017 for Jill Ellis as we get ready for the USA versus Canada. Second meeting in 4 nights. Last game was played in Vancouver. They'll close out this one here in San Jose. Canada will be in white, USA in red. Match referees from the USA, Karen Abt is our main official. Captains getting ready to take their spot. Christine Sinclair for Canada, Becky Sauerbrunn for the United States. And there is the Canadian bench. Don't see John Hurtman, but I did see him walking by the bench. Sometimes he does not start the game there, but we were told he was going to be upstairs at the start. We'll see.
And I like that. If I was a coach, I would start every game from up above so you can have a better vantage point of how things are setting up tactically.
While we have this opportunity on this Veterans Day weekend, we at Fox salute and honor our veterans past and present who have allowed us to have the freedom we enjoy. Beautiful night for soccer in the Bay Area. Beautiful stadium. What more could you ask for? And two very good teams now. It's more competitive than it's ever been, Allie. Back when you were playing, maybe you took those Canada games for granted. No longer.
You never took them for granted, but I think you didn't respect the Canadian team for their ability to play football the way this group has now ascended to. The style of play that we saw in the last match, they've been building towards this over the last 4 years, and you saw that kind of come to fruition against the U.S. where they dominated the match, and that's rare.
Those watching, those who have been watching on FS2, we invite you to please switch over to FS1. Melissa Nair starting in goal for the USA. She started 9 of the last 10 games. Ashlyn Harris started the other. Stephanie LeBay is the goalkeeper for Canada. And we are underway with the USA on the ball in red. Trying to go long and wide for Megan Rapinoe, who'll tuck it ahead. Lindsay Horan has it knocked away by Quinn. On this right side, up for Rose. And out of play immediately. It's going to be a throw-in for the Canadians.
And even that there by Quinn. I mean, Quinn isn't normally a center back. She plays in a holding mid for Duke, but playing out of that pressure 20 seconds in, usually teams try to settle in, find their feet, play it long, play safe, but Canada's confident.
US got that one away from Sinclair towards Dahlkemper. Dahlkemper's been paired now with Sauerbrunn. Last 9 games for Dahlkemper, full 90s. Captain on the ball, Sauerbrunn. Back for Nair. See how Canada plays defensively against the USA. We saw an aggressive team on Thursday in Vancouver.
And they're doing exactly what they did the other night.
Rapinoe, Morgan trying to get a step behind Quinn. Morgan stays with it, but is called for the foul.
And what's interesting, JP, is that they're doing exactly what they did the other night, but in this case, U.S. solves it. They get the numbers around the ball that they didn't have the other night in those right layers, and then that ball in behind by Rapinoe has great pace on it, great trajectory, and then the battle ensues. Quinn does well to cover him behind and beat Morgan to that, draw the foul.
Morgan's done well lately. Goals in 6 goals in her last 6 games in total. Had a good end of the season, too, in the NWSL with Orlando. 9 goals in 12. Mewis for Rapinoe. Horan trying to get it wide. It's broken up. She had Taylor Smith wide open on that right side. Instead, Canada's back on the ball in white. Fleming is the player that unlocks things for Canada. She draws that foul. Becky Sauerbrunn was very complimentary of Fleming's game yesterday.
And she's certainly the X factor that you can try to slow down, but you're not going to stop. And that's already better pressure on her. She's so difficult to get the ball off of, but at least get a body on her, make her uncomfortable.
Up for grabs. It'll come all the way back. Nair calls everyone off for that ball. Nair will hold things up. Short pass to Sauerbrunn. O'Hara. So right back the other night, left back this time. But for much of this year, she has been a starter. Ertz. Sauerbrunn. Close to the halfway line. Finding O'Hara on the move. Morgan quickly, and maybe too quickly, for Rapinoe.
But already so much better by the U.S. with Ertz dropping between the center backs. You see that Becky Sauerbrunn is the one to release. She gets past that first line of pressure, Canada, and then that second ball that she plays in O'Hara beats the midfield line. And then that third ball, yes, it's a bit too heavy, but the right idea.
Jill Ellis was saying she's looking for better decisions. We're seeing some of those better decisions, but now the execution has to be better too. Sauerbrunn. O'Hara. Chased there by Rose. Held up nicely by Morgan. That pass off the mark. That was cleared by Zadorsky. All the way back for Dahlkemper. The safe ball back to Nair. Sauerbrunn.
And you can see that Canada defends in a 4-4-2 against the U.S. in this system the way they are right now. And Sinclair, and in this case it's Becky, they'll oscillate between which center back they pick up.
Turned over in a bad spot. Pulled back by Becky. Pushed across. Soft touch there off Sinclair. Taylor Smith going aggressively forward and is able to knock it out to throw in for Canada. Canadians have one more game to play before they close out the calendar year. They'll take on Norway. We're told in Spain late November. The ball is going to get away. The Canadians will turn it over. Alyssa Nair will put it back into play. Early in this one, just the 5th minute, USA and Canada are scoreless. A much better rivalry now since the 2012 Olympics, where there was some controversy, and the Canadians used that as a rallying cry, I think, against the U.S., and it's made them better.
Well, I think they've always been motivated by the U.S., but that game in particular, I mean, they had a compelling argument.
2 of them, actually. To be fair, here's Rapinoe for the U.S. 12 goals in this NWSL season with Seattle. The turnover there, and it's Sinclair. Smith back for Dahlkemper, up the middle. Lewis down this right sideline. Kristen Press, one of the 2 changes in the starting 11. Playing it long left side, and that's too long. Looking for Morgan. It stays in the field of play somehow, and Rapinoe controls. Hard touch from O'Hara, crushed by Rose, draws the foul, free kick US.
And already better connection from the U.S. team. U.S. is the one who lays that ball into space for Press, and then she gets her head up. She has a little window. Why not serve that across back post? You've got 2 runners and Morgan Rapinoe filtering in behind. And then they're just trying to recycle it here. Kelly O'Hara's touch gets away from her a little bit, makes Rose think she can come in for that challenge.
About 25 yards away. There's a free kick coming for Rapinoe. 2 in the wall for Canada, just inside the penalty area. Rapinoe, curling ball in, didn't have enough height to it. Throw in for Rapinoe quickly for Sauerbrunn. Rapinoe defended by Rose. The touch back from O'Hara, collected by Kelly. Her first cap the other night. She plays for FC Kansas City. That's going to be knocked out of play. Belongs to Canada. Tonight's telecast is sponsored by AT&T. Anything surprise you, Allie? It's early in this game, 7 minutes.
You know, I wasn't exactly sure if the U.S. was going to be able to settle in immediately to the game, and they have. I've been surprised at how well they've been able to pick up from kind of that disappointing loss, or excuse me, tie, but outperformance in that last matchup. Better passing already, and they just seem to have better players around the ball.
Press will leave it off for Mewis down this right side. Smith. And he's going to lose possession. We have Katie Witham in between the benches. Katie, what are you hearing down there?
JP, John Herdman may not be on this Canadian sideline, but that doesn't mean that this sideline is quiet. A lot of communication from his assistants and also the available subs calling out to the starters. The message has been, make sure you're applying pressure quickly, lock it in, and don't allow that through ball in behind.
One of the things we're seeing from this Canadian side, like we saw on Thursday, much more confident group. They respect the United States. There is no fear, though.
No, and they maybe don't have the history to be as upset. A lot of these players are younger ones. You know, Jessie Fleming, for instance, one of the younger players. I mean, there's 6 teenagers on this roster, so they don't have that history. They have what's been told to them, but it's a different level of confidence because they are tactically more evolved. They are technically more proficient, and that gives you confidence, especially when you go out against the U.S. and you dominate the last match. So we talk about the world catching up. Canada's a great example of that, and I think it's interesting how they got here over the past 4 years with John Herdman at the helm.
Dahlkemper slowing things down for the U.S. for Smith. Injured in the NWSL final, but seems to be back healthy and ready to go for the U.S. trying to claim an outside back spot for the next World Cup. Rapinoe. O'Hara makes a run. She's open on the left. Rapinoe tried to cut it back to her, but that's blocked. The Rose pass blocked as well. Scott for Kelly. Turned over to Rapinoe. Both teams taking turns giving the ball away. And now finally it goes out for a throw-in for Canada.
And JP, it's a simple nuance, but the U.S. was able to reapply pressure there once they turned it over because they actually had numbers. The other night, there would have been Rapinoe with the ball at her feet, no one around her, and so Canada would have solved it and you would have found them coming down the other direction. Not tonight. U.S. in better numbers defensively because of that offensive shape.
Big collision there. Horan got it forward, player down. Here's Morgan, and it's blocked by LeBay. But just now getting back on her feet was Jessie Fleming. Corner kick U.S. their first.
And you just see Horan there and Fleming going up. Fleming grabs her head, and then Morgan's the one who's released in behind. LeBay comes off her line, cuts down that angle well.
All eyes here on Julie Ertz, with Rapinoe ready to take this corner. She'll drive it to the middle. Never got there. Cleared away. Second corner for the U.S. Rapinoe will drive it. Near post that time, and a goal. Julie Ertz makes those runs, makes those connections. Her 14th international goal, they all come off set pieces.
Are you kidding me? You know it, you script it, you prepare for it, but you can't stop it when it comes to Julie Ertz and that near post. Rapinoe sent this exact ball in on the previous corner kick. Julie Ertz changes her starting positions, but she still beats her player there. That's Chapman. Chapman's draped all over her. That angle to redirect it near post and beat the goalkeeper is something special.
And for Julie Ertz now, that's 6 goals in her last 8 games, so she has added an offensive element to that holding midfield position.
I just can't wrap my head around how good she is in those moments. I mean, it is a special gift that very few players have. She's not a tall player. Her timing, her technique is so crisp and clean.
And those who have scouted the U.S. know that it's coming, knows that that run is coming, but can't stop it.
Exactly. I mean, she beat her player there. Her player was right on her. Chapman, that was, draped on her backside, and she still was able to redirect that in the only place that probably could have beat LeBay at that near post.
So, like on Thursday, the USA has struck first, this time earlier. 11th minute, a 1-0 lead. Ertz from Rapinoe's corner. Ertz getting it wide. Smith on the move. Press. Smith. The cross. LeBay grabs it. Let's see how Canada responds after conceding first. They did come back the other night for the equalizer from Adriana Leon. The LeBay kick over the halfway line. Ertz went up for it. Fleming's pass blocked. Lindsey Horan. Didn't see anything going forward, so plays it back for Smith. Del Kemper. What does that goal do to this game, Allie, potentially, this early?
With the U.S., it can always open the floodgates, right? I mean, they can just be on and hot in a night, but I do think that Canada has learned to fight back from being down. And we're going to take a look at the goal that put the U.S. up. And you can see Julie Ertz is right in the middle of the screen. She's sizing up the player who's about to mark her. She gets her eyes on her, and then she just bodies her initially, and then just a quick little dart. It's nothing much, just a quick little dart beats their player to that exact spot, and Rapinoe delivers it on a dime.
Earliest goal that Canada has conceded to the U.S. since 2011. Scott will push it back. Held up there by Quinn. Long distance delivery. Doesn't connect.
She served a lot of those in the first match, and that stretched the U.S. back line. It looked intentional, softened things up, and there was space underneath then for a Fleming, for Sinclair to pull off that back line. Janine Becky in particular. Tonight, they just haven't even had the ball at their feet to try to test that back line.
Smith, Horan. Nice ball in, Morgan. Plenty of defenders there, though. They were 5 in white, close to Morgan. Horan being told to switch. Does, but it's an awkward kick. O'Hara did her best to keep it in play. It was a difficult ball.
But the decision making is better already for the U.S. Yes, the execution is better, but the decisions are better. You can see there's a change in tempo. Sometimes they're 3 passes and they're getting in behind with slip balls, or in the last attack you had Horan spinning out and trying to change fields.
Mewis got crushed there. Play continues. Sinclair, one of her few touches so far, kept her away from the ball tonight. Canadians need to find her to be more effective. The referee has stopped play to come back on that previous collision. Canada have a player down. It's like Becky, who was the player in that collision with Mewis. There were a couple players, 3 players looked like involved initially.
It was off a throw, and Sinclair, usually the target was in that case. She goes up for the first. These are the second, third balls that bounce around, and then you can see the collision ensue.
Concern for Becky, the training staff from Canada is out to take a look.
And Becky was one of their better players the other night. Yes, Jessie Fleming was the star of the night, but I thought Becky put in a nice shift for them, pulling off that back line, setting play. She had a couple nice looks through passes, and in fact, her shot from outside the 18 was the one that was tipped over that led to the corner kick for the Canadian goal.
Heitzema and Riviere are up, among other players. When we showed you a shot of that Canadian bench, you mentioned the 6 teenagers. You could see how young they looked on that bench. And that's good to see. Becky up on her own. She's led the Canadians in goals scored in 2017. She has 6 in 10 games. She's actually scored more for her country than her club. John Herdman is back on the bench. I wonder if he came back after the goal was scored. It's the first time we've seen him there. He was not there at the start of the game.
Well, it seemed like he came down after the U.S. scored in the first game as well, around that 30th minute mark. But you never know. It's just when you see something that needs to change. It's an interesting perspective being high, though.
It is. Much better view for sure. Sinclair, the touch from Kelly to Rose. Stripped to the ball there. O'Hara did a good job in trying to win the ball back. Rose commits the foul. Free kick here for the U.S. from Kelly O'Hara. Got her 100th cap earlier this season. It's back for Nair. Talked about John Herdman being back on the bench. Katie Witham has more. Katie.
JP, John Herdman did walk down here after the goal and after the injury, checking on his players from the sideline. But what's most interesting is his return to the sideline meant his assistant's departure upstairs, so he could keep an eye on things from a high.
So 1 up, 1 down, Allie, right?
Hey, it's like the soccer game. 1 checks, 1 goes behind.
And you would assume that there is communication between the one upstairs and someone downstairs. Not necessarily the head coach, but someone down there. Canada on the ball. How can they create some offense against this U.S. team? We saw them create a lot more on Thursday.
Well, they haven't had the ball again. I mean, the U.S. is doing a nice job of just keeping possession, and that's the killer to any attack. For Canada, though, it can't be those hopeful balls from Jessie Fleming that deep. I think Jessie Fleming has got to get on the ball more. How does that happen? Well, she gets into her gaps between the lines. The U.S. is suffocating that, but she's crafty enough to solve that pressure. I just think she's your key to unlocking most teams you face.
The falling touch that's blocked. The U.S. collects, and then they lose it there. Becky lost it as well for Canada in the fight to reclaim it. It falls to the U.S. Dahl-Kemper for Smith. Turns it upfield. Gets the foul. Free kick, U.S.
And here's Leon just chasing back. You'll see this a lot from Canada. They put in that work to track back. A little nudge there. Smith goes down.
U.S. with a 1-0 lead over the Canadians. Leon was the player that scored the other night. She scored in each of her last couple of games for Canada. The Nair clearance. It's knocked away. Scott near sideline right in front of the Canadian bench. Lost it there. That's Rapinoe nodding it down. Horan. O'Hara, nice ball. Morgan runs on to it. Help is coming. Rapinoe makes one run. Played into Rapinoe in the middle. A deflected ball wide of goal, but Morgan and Rapinoe were definitely on the same page there, and LeBay is injured in that collision with Rapinoe going for the ball.
And that attack doesn't start unless Lindsey Horan solves pressure. These are things that did not happen for the U.S. You see, they've got numbers in this area. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 player coming into your screen. And then Lindsey Horan beats 2 players with that one ball. Megan Rapinoe, nice ball in behind. Morgan has time and space, delivers a beauty right in behind that back line. And then Rapinoe just slides in, trying to connect on it. Doesn't get that far post as LeBay comes off her line.
LeBay is still down. The backup goalkeepers, Sabrina D'Angelo, who plays for the North Carolina Courage, and Kaylin Sheridan, who plays for Sky Blue. And they also have the Canadians, Erin McLeod, who is playing in Europe and was not called back or able to come back. Same with Kadisha Buchanan. So there are a few players in Europe that were not allowed to come back. Ashley Lawrence did engineer a one-game appearance at least before she had to go back. That was planned, we were told yesterday when we heard that Lawrence was no longer here. Just one game off from Paris Saint-Germain. So now the concern is for LeBay. That's Sheridan. 22nd minute. LeBay is going to be all right, apparently, and will continue.
But JP, I still go back to this attack all happens because you have players solving pressure. This did not happen the other night. Lindsey Horan is one of those players who can do it for the U.S. Didn't have a great performance, and then that last play is a glimpse at how she can single-handedly break lines.
As LeBay gets ready to take this goal kick, Katie, what are you hearing from the U.S. side?
JP, the consistent message from Jill Ellis has been reminding her team to continue to look to switch the field, but also utilizing those outside backs. During that injury time with Canadians goalie down, Kelly O'Hara came over here to the sideline, and the U.S. assistant coach yelled out to her to make sure she gets down this near side flank quick and stay there.
Well, I think that's a fair point because the U.S. has been attacking down this left side predominantly. If you had a stat sheet, I'm sure a lot of these attacks are coming down this left flank. But I don't mind that with Megan Kelly Tester, you know, a young player who isn't familiar with that position. Yes, she trained there in camp this past few weeks with Canada, but that's not her primary position.
And for the Canadians, John Herdman talks about shifting and adapting, and now the Canadians must adapt, and they've done that well within the game. We'll see how they do it tonight as they trail. Becky try to go long for Sinclair. They've not been able to connect on these passes, the Canadians.
And then they're just on the back foot, and it's the press that the U.S. can smother you under. One of the things you talked about was how when you play the U.S., if you can go across the field more, you solve that pressure, you exhaust them, you tire them out. Jessie Fleming hasn't been able to do that. She's one of the ones who has to do it for Canada.
They rely a lot on a sophomore from UCLA, who's played every minute for Canada in 10 games. So her role has expanded, it's increased with them.
And even there, that second ball is won by Canada, but U.S. has 3 players around it, and they eventually pick up the loose one.
U.S. Good idea to Rapinoe, just off. Just off. Strong header upfield, Morgan. LeBay was off her line. The run by Press, cleared away by Chapman.
And this is a wrinkle that Morgan has added to her game, her ability to slip the ball in behind. But here's Mewis
just slipping the ball between the center back and the outside back. Kelly isn't the fleetest of foot, but LeBay is well off her line to read that and snuff out any trouble.
Back to live action, the Canadians break. That might have been too early. The idea, though, was good. Intended for Rose. Try to use her pace to beat O'Hara.
But no pressure on the ball, and that back line was doing exactly the right thing, dropping, and absorbing that.
Sauerbrunn, NWSL Best 11, 5 consecutive years. It's Nair on the ball. Towards Sauerbrunn. She'll receive to O'Hara. Rapinoe. Now some high pressure from the Canadians in white. Forced back to Nair. Forced her into a heavy touch. Sauerbrunn kept it alive. O'Hara. See if they can solve this pressure. Up for Rapinoe. And finally, Quinn will get to it. Almost lost it there. Almost handled it as well. Lewis towards Morgan. Chapman. And now it's the Ertz header towards Taylor Smith. There's a heavy touch. She may get to this ball. Nope, it's going to roll away from her. Just over the line. It was saved, but out for a corner. Rapinoe will take another from the far side this time. Their last corner resulted in a goal.
All eyes on Ertz, obviously, as she just sits at the top of the 18.
Pino's ready to strike. Drives it across, and that was blocked out for a fourth corner now for the U.S.
And even on that ball, you can see the pace that Rapinoe lays it in there with. That allows, if Julie Ertz gets to it first, just a little redirection to be powerful on frame.
Ertz made the near post run more as a decoy. It looked like that time as Adriana Leon takes it over. Drops it off. Chapman. On his left side. Becky. Sinclair. Sinclair will leave it off. Chapman.
That was really well solved by Canada and Becky there.
It's probably the most possession they've had in terms of consecutive completed passes. Number 8 right there. Fleming. Throw in for the U.S. O'Hara will take it. USA with a big edge in possession. It's a 1-0 lead for the USA on the Julie Ertz goal. Her 14th international goal came in the 11th minute. The assist to Megan Rapinoe, and now takes over as the assist leader in this calendar year for the U.S. Sauerbrunn. Moran was able to turn, now brings it back against the pressure. Switching it over on that far side. Press closest to it. Lays it off for Smith. Lewis wanting to find press down that right sideline. Right back to the feet of LeBay. She'll clear it. Sinclair. Zadorsky's pass short. Fleming. A great freshman year last year at UCLA. This year numbers are slightly down. Ball was turned over. Throw in for the United States. John Herdman said that Fleming was his most creative player at the 2016 Olympics. Used to overthink the game, he said.
And that was when he was spoon feeding her a ton of information, and that can happen to you when you're not being present in the moment because you're trying to evaluate everything. And now that she's got that information locked away, she can kind of release and relax and allow that creativity to flow.
U.S. had a player down. U.S. She's still down, actually. Ball is played long. Sauerbrunn wins it. Over to Dahlkemper. U.S. is still down. And now the ball was cleared out, so we'll take a look. Training staff will take a look, see what happened.
And here's Taylor Smith just laying a nice simple ball back into her. Mewis is trying to solve pressure. Oh, sweet little shifty move to beat 2 players. And then that heavy challenge coming in from Chapman there.
Like knee to knee. Mewis down. She and Sauerbrunn are the only 2 players that have now started all 16 games for the United States, and she's second in minutes. And at one point, people were wondering, what is Mewis's role in this team? You know, is she a role player? Is she a sub? What is she? Right now, she's a starter. She has been a starter.
And she's someone that they think they can build their team around because of her tool set. Her ability to switch the point of attack is really second to none in the international game. But I do think that she has an element to add, and that's just playing simple. I think sometimes she's trying to play the big ball too often and needs to just connect and sense the tempo of the game. I think she has the ability and the quality to do it.
See Nichelle Prince up near the 4th official. I saw her before. Not sure if there's an injury for Canada. This might just be John Herdman wanting to change the tempo of this game.
And let's not forget, he made an early sub in that other game. They faced off at the 30th minute mark.
Rose is going to be the one coming out. More experience coming on the field with Prince. But it is an early sub at the 30-minute mark, 31st minute. And we'll see what Prince can do. See if she can stretch that USA defense. So John Herdman has made the first of 6 subs he's allowed. Mewis wants to come back on the field with the referee's permission, and now we'll get it. So it's good to see her back so quickly. Sauerbrunn moving it ahead. Bad ball there, taken away. Sinclair with a shot. Should have been 1-1. And Sinclair is down. Well, the U.S. almost lost their lead on what would have been their biggest mistake of the night. But now the concern is for Sinclair. She's the 3rd player now to have the training staff come out and take a look, assuming they are coming out here.
And you expect heavy challenges in a heated rivalry such as this, but this is Lindsey Horan with a sloppy giveaway. I mean, that is to no one in particular. Not enough pace on it. Sinclair closes in on it. Tries to just one time that, sensing the pressure coming in, and curl that around air. Here's a look at just the challenge that ensues. Dahlkemper recovering back.
She got up on her own. The training staff never came out, but she has been hobbling a bit. 168 goals. She probably can play at least another 3 years, so Abby Wambach's record appears to be in jeopardy at the rate Sinclair has been scoring goals.
And I still go to the fact that she's able to accomplish that with the lack of supporting cast that she had for so many years is what makes her so impressive. And then you can talk about her soccer IQ and her intelligence in the seams. We asked Becky Sauerbrunn and Abby Dahlkemper what they thought of that attack of Canada. They said, this is probably the team that asked the most questions of us.
5th in caps, men or women, for Sinclair. You see Carly Lloyd is available on the subs bench tonight, also on that list. Sinclair, Canada's all-time leader in goals, games played, and also in assists. Rapinoe now is down as play has been stopped. Not sure what happened that time with Rapinoe.
And you're getting a good look at how poor the field condition is right now. It's just chunking up, and these players are sliding there. Horan goes down first, and then there's the challenge from Prince right into Rapinoe.
She'll try to shake that off. Rapinoe had some surgery earlier this season, but came back quicker than anyone thought. He's become a vital part of this U.S. national team again.
And arguably in her best form of her career.
It's too long for Rapinoe. It's going to go out of play. So now well past the half-hour mark, how would you assess what you've seen so far?
From the U.S., it's tenfold better than their performance a few days ago against this Canadian side. I mean, in terms of the team cohesiveness, getting numbers in an attacking shape, support, so they have outlets and angles to play out of pressure, and then the ability to put immediate pressure on Canada. It's all there for the U.S. right now. Execution, passing's better, decision-making is better. I still think what Katie Witham had said about them trying to find the weak side is going to be something they can add and envelop into this next phase.
Prince, who plays for the Houston Dash, has that one knocked out of play. She was a starter the other night on Thursday against the U.S. Both teams made a couple of changes coming into this game in terms of personnel. The U.S. also switched O'Hara from outside back on the right to the left for tonight. Chapman. Boston Breakers back, will push forward. As far upfield as she's gone during the run of play. He gets some numbers forward. Leon looks, it was off target, intended for Sinclair, and then Nair boots it away. Off Scott. Chapman. Pressure from press. Fleming. Looking for Prince, slightly off. But Prince was able to collect it. Knocked away by Horan. And then knocked out of play. Canada's ball. Throw in for Megan Kelly. Pass. Trying to connect with Prince. Ertz. Mewis. Pulling it back against Scott. And then Fleming. Kristen Press. Given away to Quinn. Rebecca Quinn, a senior at Duke University. 3 collegians started the other night for Canada, missing time with their college teams, who are now involved in playoff competition. Quinn. Sinclair. Switches. Becky chesting it down, trying to cut inside. The U.S. wouldn't let her there. Horan. Too ambitious, too quick. LeBay. Zadorsky. Quinn.
You can see the U.S.'s initiation line of where they're going to put pressure on Canada's lower this game, and it's allowing them to be more compact and get that pressure once those entry passes come from Canada.
There's pass, nice turn from Horan. That's behind press. Will allow the Canadians to get back behind the ball. Mewis. Horan. Help is coming from O'Hara. Horan taken away. Fleming. Head on the swivel, looking to see who else is coming with her. Rushed that pass. Picked up by Dahlkemper.
And it's a little thing. Fleming's pass went astray. It wasn't good, but you watch her slow it down. She realized, I don't have a lot of numbers forward. I'm going to try to let my team join in the attack. So many players don't do that. So many players rush it, and she just has that awareness.
Listen there. Plays in the NWSL with Chicago Red Stars. 12 players from each side from the NWSL. On a play. Throw-in coming up here.
And JP, I cannot stress enough how important what Becky Sauerbrunn just did in that last attack is for the U.S. In that last match, she wasn't driving and beating that line as often. She beat the line. Sinclair was nowhere to be found, and then suddenly the U.S. has overloads and they have numbers in those spaces. Yes, it didn't pan out, but this is one of the differences that is creating this different game altogether from the last matchup.
Chapman running strong left side. Help in the box. Up for grabs, and O'Hara going to head to it. Sinclair, first one on the ball for Canada. Does well to hold it, finds Kelly. Scott drives it well wide of goal.
And here's a great look at it. That ball is played into Becky Sauerbrunn. Her first instinct is, I've got to take this long 2 or 3 touches to beat Sinclair. You saw her feet come into the picture late, and then the U.S. has these numbers to try to solve the pressure. It doesn't come off, but this is one of the things that is opening up the game for the U.S. that they didn't have the other night.
Milestones for Sauerbrunn, her first cap, her 100th, and in the middle of the 50th, all against the Canadians. And right in front of the Canadian bench, there'll be a throw-in for Prince. Hara got a piece, it's blocked out. It's a throw-in for the U.S. in the 40th minute.
And how much of the game has been stuck on this left side. It doesn't seem fair to have a player of Press's quality just hanging out on that weak side over there, not getting the ball to her feet.
For Morgan, heading it down. Too far away from Horan. Settles it for O'Hara.
We can see what Canada's trying to stretch that back line of the U.S. Zadorsky doesn't get enough on that to get it over the top, but they're trying to soften it up a little bit.
The U.S. very deep. Deepest she has been here tonight. Now goes forward.
Right, they prefer that to be Julie Ertz.
Knocked away and out for USA throw-in. Coming at halftime, sponsored by AT&T. Katie and Leslie will have all of your first half highlights and analysis. We'll look ahead. Next year, qualifying for the 2019 World Cup that will be held in France. Ahead it goes to O'Hara. And the offside flag was up, I think, for the first time tonight. LeVay will put it back into play.
And JP, another piece to the way this game is evolving is that there isn't the Ashley Lawrence out there. So you have Megan Kelly in this right back position. She's just not getting forward and pinning Megan Rapinoe back. Megan Rapinoe had to deal with Ashley Lawrence a lot in the last matchup. Well, now Megan Rapinoe can stay higher.
Confusion about whose throwing this is. It's going to be a U.S. throwing, or is she changing it? Change it. It's Canada's. '42nd minute, a 1-0 lead for the United States. If you joined us late, Julie Ertz scored in the 11th minute, same way she normally does, off of a corner kick or off a set piece. U.S. for O'Hara. Can the U.S. take this lead into the locker room at halftime? Rapinoe tried to keep that ball in play, but it goes out off of her. Throw in for Canada.
And that's an example of the U.S. just trying to jam it down. Jill Ellis calls it pressure pockets. I just say where the numbers are. O'Hara could have spun out, found the opposite flank.
Canada on the ball, ranked number 5 by FIFA, second in CONCACAF. USA is number 1 in both. Quinn. It's blocked. Almost gave that one away. Fleming is deep. Doesn't see anything farther up the field, so plays it short for Quinn. Scott, Sinclair. Trying to go against Ertz. 3 players collide. It was a rough collision, and Ertz stays down.
And at first glance, it looked like someone was from below, and then someone came up top on Ertz.
So the goal scorer down for the moment after this collision.
There's Sinclair just fighting her way. She's the one that's coming from behind. And then Prince recovering back in, just chops at her low.
It's Prince that appeared to get the most of Ertz, not so much Sinclair. A time though for instruction on that Canadian bench. With the U.S. player down, and now Julie Ertz is back up. Ready to go. 44th minute. So the match referee, Karen App, gets the Canadians back out on the field. It's the only real time you have the coach in this game when there's an injury like that, and John Herdman had all the players over right by him.
But they're so in tune with how they want to go about their business, with the tactics, with the system they're playing. I expect them to be evolving themselves to tactically solve it without his instruction from the sideline. So I don't know if much will change.
Ball's turned over to the Canadians with time running out in the first half. Chapman will have a throw in off Sinclair. Becky blocked out. Another throw in for Canada. Scott's pass ahead. Now it's pushed back to Fleming. She's probably had the most touches for Canada. Fleming, 17 in white. Down this right side, it's going to go out of play. Intended for Prince. Trying to stretch that USA defense. O'Hara's throw in. Almost at 45 minutes here. US with a 1-0 lead.
Fleming may have the most touches for Canada, but she's not playing those balls to break the lines the way she did the other night. A lot of it's going side to side, which is still a good thing, but they're not penetrating as much. There isn't that space that there was the other night.
3 minutes of stoppage time added on here, minimum of 3. As Smith takes over, no pressure on her yet. Now Becky comes over, got the block. Scott pulling it back against Horan. Zadorski. Quinn. Sinclair. Fleming going forward. Too far, too close to Nair. Second minute of stoppage time. Press. Lewis. Away from Sinclair. Gave that ball away. That was too easy. Prince. Now Canada will try to get some numbers forward. Off the foot of Leon. Right to Nair.
And Press has to be frustrated. I mean, she has not seen the ball all game long, and when she lays that ball back into Mewis, she wants it back at her feet. She doesn't want the U.S. to change it right away and come back down the flank that they've been going down all half.
Winter O'Hara, the flick by Rapinoe. Morgan's on the chase, kept that ball in, but then she took a hard tumble by the USA bench.
She's been doing very good defensive work this half. Doesn't always get lauded, but here she is just tracking that ball, keeping it in play. Momentum carries her out of bounds.
Time running out in this opening half. USA with a 1-0 lead. Dahlkemper with this free kick from long distance. Third minute of stoppage time. Dahlkemper headed wide of LeBay. There's a friendly ball towards Horan.
Dahlkemper is so good at these dead ball set pieces. She just drives that one. Great trajectory on it. Good landing area. Her hands in behind her defender there. Want to redirect that one back across frame.
Less than a half minute to go. The referee Karen App pulls true to 3 minutes of stoppage time. Stephanie LeBay sends it long. Halfway line area. Canadians collect. Scott may go back to goal. She does. To the feet of LeBay. Pressure now on LeBay as she releases. Knotted down. Up for Rapinoe. Horan. Rapinoe. Past the 3 minutes of stoppage. Should be a corner. This could be the last kick of the half.
There's a second ball on the field still.
Rapinoe's ready to strike. Hurts among the usual targets. And there's that second ball again on the field. Rapinoe was assisted on the only goal scored by Ertz in the 11th minute. She'll drive it, sent in wide, and that was the last kick of this opening half of play.
Much better performance from the U.S. overall. Answered a lot of questions for themselves, and that all started with just keeping things compact.
Well, Julie Ertz, the star of the show so far. Ertz getting it in the 11th minute of the game. It's her 14th international goal. 8 of her 14 international goals have been scored with her head, including her last 3 goals. So a good performance from Julie Ertz, who is standing by right now with Katie Witham. Katie.
Julie, you gave your side an early lead in this one. You head into the locker room 1-0. What did you think of your side's first 45?
Yeah, I think we're moving the ball well. I think, you know, being able to play them on Thursday and learning a lot from that. I think we're moving the ball really well. We're more aggressive. You know, we're picking and choosing our times, and I think it's helped us a lot.
Appreciate the time. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katie. Julie Ertz has the game's only goal as the USA is able to celebrate. They take a 1-0 lead into the locker room at halftime. Katie and Leslie come back with us for halftime.